Episode 60 of the Pilot podcast takes off now.
Well, hello, and welcome on board with me and Justin today on Pilot to Pilot podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by AOPA and AOPA's Super Cub Sweepstakes. That is correct. You heard that right. AOPA is giving away a Super Cub. You can win a plane for free. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I've always wanted to own my own plane, but I just don't have 50, 100, whatever the crazy price is to buy an airplane. So here is my chance and here is your chance. All you have to do is go to www.aopa.org/sweeps and enter before May 31st. You also have the opportunity to win one of 70 more aviation prizes. Remember, when you become an AOPA pilot, you receive over $300 in aviation benefits, a discount on your membership dues, a free welcome gift, and you are automatically entered to win the Super Cub. There's no purchase necessary, and make sure you see rules for other entry methods. Join AOPA today. What is going on, AV Nation, and welcome back to episode number 60 of the Pilot podcast. My name is Justin, and I am your host, and today I'm talking with everyone's favorite Iceland pilot, Volcano Pilot. He's a must follow on Instagram, especially if you're looking for some aviation inspiration and some personal inspiration. He is a great guy and someone that I'm glad to call an Instagram friend and hopefully one day a real friend. But some of the things that we talk about in today's episode are just the love of aviation, how much he truly loves aviation. He loves to inspire through his stories and through his photography, and it's something that I think has just really done a great job. And he's had the ability to fly some really cool people and really show them the magic and the beauty of aviation. He also gets into talking about how aviation didn't work out for him as first, how he had some struggles in his career and talked himself out of becoming a pilot, but later came back to his dream of becoming a pilot. I hope you guys really enjoyed today's episode. If you do, leave me a review on iTunes. Check out our website, pilottopilot.hq.com. If you have any feedback, email me, pilottopilot.hq@gmail.com. You can also check out our Patreon page where you can get some awesome swag, keychains, and stickers, and t-shirts now, the $20 Club, at patreon.com/pilottopilot. Aviation, I do not want to keep you any longer. So without any further ado, here is Volcano Pilot. What is going on, Volcano Pilot? Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, and as your introduction, I would try to pronounce your name, but I would just do such a disservice to it and disrespect, so I'm just going to go with Volcano Pilot today.
Well, you can try this out. We can test this out for a couple of seconds.
Oh boy.
Haraldur. Almost there, but okay. Let's move on. Let's do Volcano Pilot.
Volcano, yeah. I mean, it's typical American stuff, right? You know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and start. Let's. First question I ask everyone to kind of break the ice and start the podcast is why aviation? What was your original interest in aviation?
When I was probably 3 years old, I got this book from my mom, and it was an American cartoon book drawn, and it had it was about what's happening at the airports. So you had baggage handlers and check-in agents and ATC and pilots, and that page with the pilots and the plane, it was just it's groped in my memory like in stone.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I think, pilot something, right? Flying planes and airplanes, fascinated with airplanes all the time. When I was about, I think, 5 years old, I went on my first plane ride not my first, in a small plane. It was a Cessna 182. And I remember where I sat in the plane, and I remembered taking off, which runway and all in Reykjavik, and we turned around and landed again because the pilot, my uncle, actually forgot something to take with him. And so we landed again and took off again. And I was about 5 years old. And that was something I wanted to do. Now, later in life, and I love to tell the story about, how kind of teenage years kind of bust your ego and you don't think of yourself as being able to. So during those teenage years from, 15, 16 or so, I imagined, or I told myself that I would never become a pilot. And, in retrospect, you see this as a complete fallacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I gave myself was that I was too short. And I'm totally not a big guy. And well, I always say I've never been in a plane that I didn't fit into.
Yeah.
And that's a fact, right?
Yeah.
But when I got to 19 or so, we did these theme days in high school, and I went to the flight school and took an introduction lesson. And after that was kind of, I was hooked. I couldn't get this out of my mind. I really wanted to try it. And finally I decided, and I remember where and when I decided this, and checked in with my sister that lived in Woodland, California at the time.
Uh-huh.
And there was a flight school close by in Sacramento called the Executive Flyers.
Oh, cool.
I pinged them and decided to start my training in November of 92.
Oh, cool. So did you graduate high school then? You're like, all right, I got to be a pilot. I got to figure out how to do this.
Yeah, I did that. And within 6 or 7 months, I was in California.
Cool. What was your original goals with becoming a pilot? Did you want to be kind of flying for Iceland Air? Was that kind of on your wish list?
Yeah, it was kind of, because I went to California in November. I did my training in about 6 or 7 weeks for the private pilot, and that was the prerequisite for getting into the CPL studies.
Uh-huh.
And I got to the CPL stage without actually completing my practical test in the States.
Oh, wow.
Because Sacramento Valley tends to fog up in December.
Yes, it does.
And there's just this layer of fog that's there for weeks on end. So we couldn't fly, and I couldn't take my test. And so I went back home on January 1st and started class on January 4th or 5th. And I think I lasted a week until I said, I'm in way over my head. Huh. So I quit. And that's one of those things that you'll always regret for not just pushing through and sticking to the schedule.
What made you feel like you're in over your head?
There's a lot of differentiation between FAA and then at that time the Icelandic studies. Mm-hmm. So a part of that made me feel that way, and also I thought the other guys were way better prepared for this. Sorry, my dog is grabbing my attention here, so I got to pull with him just a bit.
No worries.
And then I think there were a lot of issues right at that time, financial, and you thought you wouldn't make it again. That self-esteem perhaps kicking in or not, not helping you in that regard. And I quit. My uncle that actually flew with me when I was 5, that uncle of mine, he was the headmaster of the school. Yeah, he was. So he actually said, he didn't say anything, but he said something in the likes of, I think you're making a mistake.
Yeah.
But, you see that in retrospect.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can kind of, without a doubt. And I can kind of, sympathize with your thoughts on that, because I mean, whenever you go to try something new, or whenever you're starting aviation, like there's always someone that you feel like is doing better than you. It doesn't matter how prepared you are, how ready you are for it. There's always someone that's going to be better than you. There's always someone that's going to study harder than you. There's always someone that's going to make you kind of feel inferior and kind of be like, man, they're the better pilot. Like, what am I doing here? So it's definitely something that a lot of people go through. And I think that's something that is just life in general, that there's always someone that's working harder. There's always someone that puts more time in,
That's absolutely true. But then again, if you think about it, that you're one of the population, you can't be everything. You can't be, Einstein in aviation. You can't be, whatever role model or mentor you look up to, you're not there. But they also have a head start on you. They could be, sons or daughters of pilots, and they've been brought up in the aviation world, and they've been in this for 15 years when you finally get going, right?
Absolutely.
So, did you follow the same track? No, nobody follows the same track. And that's one of those things that, you have to consider when you're a pilot. You'll never be, perfect, but you should always aim for it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So one of the best, lessons my current wife, taught me when we got together some 14 years ago. She asked me, why are you always comparing yourself to others?
Oh, that's a good question.
And I go like, I don't know. I have no idea. I've always done this, right? And she asked me the deeper question, does it make you feel any better? No, of course not.
Definitely not.
No. So why should you put that unrealistic standard of someone else without seeing his whole life, his whole picture, right? Because you always think, he's living such a good life, and he's this and that. He's so smart, or she's so beautiful, or whatever. And why would you put yourself through that unrealistic comparison? So that kind of, that was 14 years ago, and I'm still working on it.
Absolutely. Everyone
right?
is,
of course.
Yeah. That's a deep question, because it's something, especially now with Instagram, where everyone kind of sees, oh wow, look, this guy's flying the 787, or look how cool Pilot Maria's life, or just kind of the aviation influencers, or even like the Kim Kardashians. But you don't know the full story of their lives. You don't know what the struggles that they have, because everyone has struggles. It doesn't matter how successful you are. True. You have your own demons. You have your own struggles. You've had things that you've had to overcome to get to where you are. So it does you no good to compare yourself to someone like that. It's easier said than done, right? Like I do it all the time.
Never.
I'm like, man, I wish I could be this. Or when I was playing football in college, I've always wanted, like, man, I wish I was faster. I wish I had a better arm. I wish I could do this. I wish I was Tom Brady. But
there was always something. Huh?
Yeah, there's always something that you can do better.
And even when you look at you mentioned the Kardashians, which I'm not familiar with, but I know Pilot
Consider yourself lucky. Yeah.
But and it's the open life of social media, right? But it's not real.
No.
It's not. I'm not always flying, having fun. It's a big part of what I do, and it's I will always say that flying raises my happiness levels, and it does, to an effect that you meet people that you would otherwise not have met. You engage with them, and you have fun, and you do some fun stuff flying. And flying here in Iceland is pretty awesome. Anyways, so in terms of daily life, I wake up, take my dog out walking, or to the airport. And, I have to pick up his shit and stuff like that. It's not always fun.
Yeah.
And then I have to work as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's, anything in the career, anything in aviation, or any career. And I like to say this is like, no one cares about the stuff you're going through. It's like you can make excuses for everything of why you can't do this or why you can't do that. At the end of the day, the only person that cares about your career is yourself. Like your followers don't care. They just are there to see the pictures, see the content. It's like, you need to be in this for yourself. You need to recognize that this is something you want to do and go after it, 100%.
That's totally, and I think that my followers get it, that, this is something that I want to do.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be able to fake that person that is Volcano pilot.
Yeah.
But, I'm usually pretty upbeat and talkative and
Absolutely.
I don't know,
I love your channel.
Whatever you call it.
Yeah.
But you can't put a person in that situation and say do this, right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
There's a lot of my personality that goes hand in hand with that guy you see on Instagram, anyways.
Yeah, a lot of realness to it.
Oh, there is.
Yeah.
Except for my, I've been posting more a while back with my fascination for whiskey. Now, from the looks of it, you might consider me a total non-recovering alcoholic.
Non-recovering.
and that's maybe, I'm totally not an alcoholic.
Yeah.
I like whiskey, but I'm not drinking it every day throughout time. Just like I'm not flying every day because, I got to work too, and there's weather.
Yeah, Iceland's known for not having the best weather.
I was talking to a ferry pilot a while back. She's almost up to her 1,000th ferry flight. Mm-hmm. She mainly flies TBMs from the factory in Tarbes over to America. Yeah. And she always stops by here. And I'm talking to her. We did a flight together and from Tarbes to Iceland. And I asked her, what's the most, difficult weather you've had? And she goes, Iceland. Always Iceland.
Always
She's
Iceland.
flown all over the world.
Yeah.
And it's from a person that is not flying all the time up 37,000 or 41,000 feet. Right. She's in the weather, in the soup. Right. And we have interesting weathers.
Yeah, you do. That is an understatement. I personally haven't flown there before, but I follow some other pilots that live in Iceland, and it's just like, dang, it's still snowing, it's still windy, it's still gusting up to 50 knots. It's like, what the heck?
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, let's bring it back a little bit to what we're talking about. So you were in class, kind of to become a pilot, and you kind of recognized that maybe you were in over your head, or at least that's the kind of the thought process you were in. What was your next step? Did you totally walk away from aviation, or did you just kind of do it more on a private level?
Well, the thing was, I got married to my first wife. Yeah. Shortly thereafter, and then kind of family things, and started my own business and ran that, and it was just time consuming and all that. So I kind of drifted away. I did a few hours once in a while, but so in 1998, so 6 years after I initially started, I got the money and I made the decision to complete the PPL, and I did. Fortunately, at that time, and from there on, I haven't lapsed for a long time. But in 1999, I started my CPL.
Oh, cool.
So I completed that and ATPL, and at that time it was separate. So got my ATPL at that time, which is now the EASA FCL license, right? Yeah. And did my flight instructor rating and everything. Now, with that in hand, there was absolutely nothing to do in Iceland, right? Yeah. There were this main company that hired was Iceland Air, and they would hire from the domestic carriers or the small airlines or operators here, and they would hire somebody new, right? So it's a step-by-step process. Nobody would get into Iceland Air, without having flown somewhere else before. Right. The time changed later on, but at that time, I didn't see any job prospects in Iceland, so we moved to Denmark. Okay. And I had a guarantee of a job there, and I was supposed to take over as instructor at the CPL course in Roskilde, which is close to Copenhagen. Mm-hmm. And this was in August 2001. So we moved there, and I started my introduction into their practices and all that, and I had to get up to speed in my Danish, which was a very high school level. When I moved, we learned Danish in school, but we don't use it.
Yeah.
So when you get to Denmark, you don't understand anything. Right? You could read it, but you can't speak. You're
using
not
it in a conversation. No.
No way.
Yeah.
So I start that, and then because I ran a company here back home, I had to be in Iceland every 2 weeks or so. So at one point in Iceland, I'm at the office and my brother calls me and says, there was a plane that flew into World Trade Center.
Yeah.
And I go like, you got to turn on the TV. It's live. And I do that. And I go like, shit, this is going to be something.
Yeah.
So the following days, I get back to Denmark, and the guy that I was supposed to relieve, he didn't get his job with SAS and held his old job, and I was there, kind of doing nothing for the first few weeks or so, and then absolutely doing nothing. Yeah. and the guy said, we can't hire you. So I did like a course or so in meteorology at the time, and I taught that in English and Danish, kind of mixed. And then I did nothing I didn't work within aviation for probably 2 years until an airline startup here hired me for their station manager job in Copenhagen.
It's crazy how September 11th, like obviously I'm an American, I live in the States, like it affects us because it happened in our country, but I don't necessarily take a step back and think about how that affected every country, like selfish American that we are, we always think about us, but it's, I don't think about like how it affected other countries. I don't think about how people in Denmark couldn't get a job with an airline because of what happened in the States. It's just crazy to me to kind of think about that, but it had a whole worldwide reach. And
it did.
It did. What was that like watching that for you? Because I was in 6th grade and I remember it just felt like the world was coming to an end. Like the emotions I couldn't even kind of explain the emotions that I had because my country felt like it was being attacked, and you're seeing this. And my dad was a pilot. I didn't know where he was. He actually was. I think he was getting ready to take off in a New York airport. I think it was LaGuardia, and he actually said that he saw the second plane hit the tower. So it's just everyone experienced that in so many different ways. But what was that experience like for someone in Denmark watching that happen on TV?
Yeah, it was weird. I haven't really thought about my emotions at the time, but I sensed that this was going to be big, and it would affect me in some way, and especially aviation, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of the foresight at that time, but and it severely did, But when you think about it, airline operations are all about statistics and analytics, right? Yeah. So when this happens, the analytics staff and the forecasters of demand, they go into panic, right? People won't travel anymore, and they will at times, and this is just nature of economics and human behavior probably, that you will over or underestimate something happening.
Yeah.
And of course, people didn't stop traveling. Goods were still being transported throughout the world by air. There wasn't, of course you have to be on top of your game and all that, but doing forecasts is extremely hard, especially about the future, right? So you maybe they overreacted, but there was a slowdown in the aviation industry, and we all it affected everyone.
Yeah.
Right?
And you said it took about 2 years before you landed at another aviation job?
Yeah, aviation related, right? I wouldn't have gotten the job without being a pilot, but I got into that job, and I told them at the beginning that I consider this a stepping stone into the 737 cockpit.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, they need pilots just like you, and let's get this ball rolling. But then it turned out that I had to pay for my own training, the type rating.
Oh no,
37.
That would be expensive.
It was about, at that time, and it hasn't changed a lot. It's about 23,000 euros, which is probably 26,000 US.
I'm having a heart attack just thinking about spending that much money on a type rating.
You think about it. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
You think about it in terms of, young people having no prospects of a job, right? You already invested 100,000 euros or so into your training to become a commercial pilot. Mm-hmm. And then you have no job offers whatsoever. Nobody's going to hire a 200-hour pilot.
Right.
And then they go like, well, if I buy the type rating, I will have a better chance. And many people do, especially in the Eastern European countries.
Yeah.
And of course, low-cost carriers, they tend to do this. They tend to sell type ratings and hire young pilots and get them up to 500 hours on type or so, and then they're off or not. Okay?
Yeah.
So at that time, that was the offer on the table, and at that time, I couldn't accept it because I was just recently divorced, and we had an arrangement with the kids that they would be with me 1 week and 1 week with her. Mm-hmm. And all these, just life happens, right?
Life does happen.
So I didn't do it. I didn't go that route. Moved back to Iceland a couple of years later, and since then mainly worked within aviation, and still working within aviation relation. We make apps for pilot unions and cabin crew unions.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's a story for later, maybe. But that's a very interesting factor in meeting pilots and visiting other countries, and we travel a lot because of that. So yeah, that's a nice thing, being within reach of aviation and being able to, in this, what I do online, Volcano Pilot, is, I have flying on my own terms. I don't have to wake up at 4 a.m. to, board a flight and fly somewhere over to Europe or in the States or whatever, and stay there and come back when the office tells me to.
Yeah, or when the winds are gusting to 60 knots, you can be like, nah, I think I'll stay on the ground today.
Yeah, you don't have that pressure to go out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. It's so interesting to hear just how many different aspects of jobs there are in the aviation industry, especially with technology. So technology and the introduction of iPads, apps, computers has just completely changed how airlines work, right? And it's just, It's so crazy to think. It's like there's legit aviation themed jobs in every aspect of it. Like customer service, you can clean the planes. Like it's its own kind of it's its own business. Like you can do everything in aviation. And talking about creating apps, like I didn't even think about the need for the apps for the airline. So obviously they need apps for customer facing. They need apps for the unions. Mm-hmm. They need apps for the pilots. They need apps for weather. They need apps for this. So you kind of noticed the need for that and you created that. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't my idea, but my friends, who is captain for Iceland Air.
Oh, cool.
And he realized there was a need there, and he works with the union a lot. So, and as a union guy, so he started this up, and I've been kind of helping or assisting that for the last 5 years.
Yeah. So what does the app necessarily do? Is the app for kind of...
Well, it's mainly a communication app for airline unions, or airline pilot unions. That's where we started. But later, and that was, I have a BA and BS in business administration. So I used to work as a business consultant as well. So I did, financial forecasts and marketing plans and business plans and all that, and kind of help startups getting to the next step with financing or getting investors on into the company and stuff like that. But for the last 3-4 years, I haven't been really in consulting. The app is a communication solution for basically every kind of group that has a board or an office or needs some kind of a control.
Okay.
So this could be, I don't know if you're familiar with city apps. Like you would have a city app for New York, where New Yorkers could, handle all their issues with the municipality or district or whatever.
Right.
So this could be it for small cities or large whatever, or any kind of group. We started out with airline pilot unions, and we've expanded into cabin crew unions now. So that's the next step, and then municipalities and cities are the next step.
That's awesome.
So it's kind of cool. Yeah, it works nice.
That's good.
And it's a cool app.
Let me know when you create one for Chicago, because that's where I live. So
yeah, I'm going to Chicago in July.
Hey, hit me up, man. I live in Chicago. Let's hang out.
Are you going to Oshkosh?
I'm trying to, yeah. I'm waiting for my schedule, so I'm trying to see when my schedule comes out. I want to go. Is that where you're going to go to Oshkosh? Yes. Perfect. Yeah.
So we I don't know if you're familiar with a guy on Instagram. He's called the Globe Master.
Oh, I've heard of him. Yeah.
Okay, John Millman.
Yeah.
So he was here flying with me and having fun, and he said like AOPA and the States should have us come visit and have a social meet and greet, like a social get together.
Yeah, meet up.
Kinda, right?
Yeah.
So he said, Pilot Maria could be there, and we could be there, and so I pitched this to my friend who's a marketing manager at AOPA US, and he loved the idea, so we're doing it.
Nice.
And this will be the first time in Oshkosh that they have this. I wouldn't call myself a social influencer, but
I know what you mean. Yeah. You're more of a social influencer than you think. I know it's like, you feel like maybe you're not like a Pilot Maria, but like you're definitely an influencer. You definitely help influence the aviation community.
Well, the nicest thing about this, and that's where I get my good feelings from, is when people send me their pictures from their introductory flights.
Yeah, for sure. That's cool. Yeah, the messages are amazing.
Like, you were my inspiration to do this. And that's crazy. I almost get tears in my eyes when people figure out how aviation can fit them.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite parts too, is when they're like, hey man, like I get some message to be like, hey, like listening to your podcast has made me want to change my career. They're like 30 years old. They're like, I've always wanted to be a pilot, and hearing all these other aviators that have changed their career when they're 30, it just made me, and they're like, I quit my job. I did this. I'm like, whoa. I'm sorry for making you quit your job, but like, I'm happy that you're going to aviation. Yeah. It's like, I didn't say quit your job. I mean, that was your own decision, but yeah, it's really cool to see kind of the influence that you can have, and just that these stories and just your pictures and your account can help change lives. It's really cool.
It is crazy when you think about it, right? Because Instagram is a crazy good medium for connecting with others.
Yeah,
and that's what I love to do. I love connecting with people all around the world.
Absolutely.
And when people realize that, because the marketing aspect of pilot education is pictures of people in uniform flying in the airlines.
Yeah,
right. That's the marketing appeal, but nobody. You don't see pictures of, flight schools offering PPL training or, showing some Super Cups on Alaska boost wheels.
Right.
This could be you, That's not the marketing thing that we see. Maybe it should be, because there's a lot of freedom in aviation. And when you become a pilot, you realize what this freedom means.
Yeah.
You know, so it's crazy good when you think about it.
And it doesn't mean it doesn't mean just becoming an airline pilot either. It's like you said, it's like, I think there's the old adage in the community is you're not a successful pilot, or you're not even a real pilot until you're flying a 737 or you're flying for an airline, you know. It's like, as I continued to build on my career, I was like, all right, I finally got hired to fly a 310 to fly aero survey, but it's like, I still felt weird telling people I was a pilot. And then I would go, then I went to a freight airline, or not an airline. I was a freight dog. I flew freight, and I was still like, I felt like I was a poser. I didn't feel like I was a real pilot. And then I got hired by a corporate job, and it's like, I mean, I'm a real pilot. I have over 4,000 hours, and I'm still like, well, I don't fly for the airline. So I guess I don't know if I can call myself a real pilot, you know? And I think that is a failure on our part. I think that was kind of like the heyday and the last 30 years and the ups and downs. It's always been, hey, you have to be an airline pilot to be considered a real pilot or to have a good career. And I think that's just now changing. I think that social media and Instagram has a lot to do with that. They show how cool it is to fly a float plane in Florida. And now more people are like, oh, I want to go fly a float plane to the Bahamas. Or like you said, all the bush planes that are taking off, and whether it's Alaska, whether it's just the West in the States, it's really cool to see.
It is. Because even into this aspect, flying in Iceland hasn't been really, international pilots haven't realized that Iceland has a very thriving community of GA pilots and GA general aviation in general, general aviation. And people are realizing this now. And American pilots, I get emails almost every day about pilots in the States that want to fly to Iceland and are asking me directions on how to do that. So that's awesome. Not only American, but of course European as well.
Right. No, I mean, I think it's just opened up another kind of romance in aviation. And I interviewed a while back, and they said that they feel like we've lost kind of a romance with aviation. Maybe we're getting greedy with money and stuff and want all the money in airline pilot. But I think that it's just, we're finding that romance again for aviation back when aviation started, when it was like super fun and super cool to go fly. So I'm excited for the future.
It is exciting. I think there's a lot of misconception about how aviation is perceived in within the general public, and people don't realize how actually easy it is to become a pilot.
Yeah, it's
a real pilot. Flying tail wheels and Super Cubs and
with bush wheels on.
Yeah. That's. I flew with a Turkish 777 pilot year ago. Yeah. And we take Skookie, my dog, with us, and we land at not even a strip, just a field. And we go out there, and it's beautiful sunny day. And he goes almost with tears in his eyes, and he says, "This is what I want to do."
Yeah.
I go, you're flying the 777, dude. That's like the ultimate goal. And he says, "No, this is the real flying." So I go, oh, maybe he's right.
It's crazy, right? Yeah, I mean, it is. I feel like, like fly the 777 or even my job or airlines in general. It's just like point A to point B, do the same thing on a different day, Groundhog Day, over and over and over again. And it's easy it's like we talked about earlier. You get to fly on your own terms. You get to fly when you want, when the weather's nice, and you get to do some really cool things and enjoy the true freedoms of aviation. So you definitely have an envious part in the aviation community.
Well, I sometimes ask my friends, captains with Iceland Air or wherever, when was the last time you hugged your passenger? Because I always, there are exceptions, of course, right. But I always get hugs and kisses after each flight.
That's awesome. If I don't fly with you, I'm not going to kiss you. Don't be offended.
I won't be, okay? we're in good terms though.
There
right?
you go. Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about kind of flying in Iceland. So you mentioned that it is a thriving general aviation community. Kind of talk about it a little bit. Kind of talk about why it's thriving. Kind of. I know it's a small country, so is there a lot of pilots in Iceland that are general aviation pilots, or do they mainly fly just to go fly for Iceland Air?
Well, both. You're right on both terms. There are many that go into pilot school and they complete their studies and they go fly for Iceland Air, or actually now the collapsed WOW Air, which was a pretty big airline. Yeah. They hired a lot of pilots. Now there are probably 270 pilots that are without a job. So, if you want to hire good Icelandic pilots, let me know. So they would complete their training and they would go fly for the airlines, and they wouldn't sit in a single engine airplane ever again. And that's a sad fact.
Yeah.
But it happens. It happens everywhere, right? So it's just for the job. What we've been trying, because I have to say this because it's an important thing of what I do. I'm the president of AOPA here in Iceland.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
And because of that, we've been trying to influence more people that are flying for the airlines to get back into general aviation and do it for fun, right? Because they lapse on their single engine piston privileges, right? And try to make flying fun. And whenever I've been doing this probably for, 5 years now. Every 6 months or so, we in Europe meet up for kind of coordination within Europe. And several years ago, I remember they were talking about, all these problems with EASA and all these problems that are related to flying and yada, yada, yada. And I said, guys, listen, we will never, ever be able to recruit people into AOPA, different regional AOPAs, or even flying if we're always negative.
True.
So we have to change our appearance. We have to talk about how fun this is and why we got into this in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
And of course there are problems, and of course there are issues that we have to fight. This is a freedom worth fighting for, and we do that, right? But we cannot forget why we have this freedom and why we worked so hard to become a pilot and retain those privileges, right? So they actually, international AOPA, I think we've done quite well in presenting ourselves in a different way. So this is, it's a freedom to fly. We have this privilege, incredible privilege of being able to and allowed to fly around the skies, and it's precious. It's worth fighting for, but that's not the only thing we do. We have to remind people and tell people how absolutely fantastically fun this is, and we can make it fun. So let's make flying fun again. Huh?
I love it. Yeah. Make flying fun again. Yeah, I think you should make some red hats with that saying on it.
Maybe not red. Okay.
There you go.
Let's. You promised me before we started this we wouldn't talk about politics, and we're going to stick to that. Okay.
Perfect. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. It's I think that we have done a terrible job in the industry of making flying seem fun. Like, obviously Instagram has helped. We've posted a picture of all the good times, but really whenever you get pilots together, I feel like the first thing they start talking about is like, man, my airline did this. I can't believe that I'm doing this, or I'm getting paid this where I deserve to be paid this, or this company's getting that and that and that. It's like, well, hold on. It's like, remember when you were a private pilot, when you were dreaming of flying a 737 and now you're actually doing that? It's like, take a step back. And I'm guilty of this too. I complain as well. Pilots are the best complainers. We always need to be paid more when we always need to fly as little as possible. The old saying, but we just need to remember, take a step back our first solo and remember why we love aviation, that we're getting paid to do something that we absolutely love to do.
Imagine if you go into the cockpit every day and you say to yourself, I can't believe I'm getting paid for this shit.
Yeah. Really well too. Yeah, really well.
And that's one of the things that, you have to mindfully put yourself into that mindfulness of being grateful for what you have. Right. And telling yourself, why you're doing this. You're not doing it. I don't fly for the money. That's one thing.
Yeah. I
still love it. And yes, once in a blue moon, I fly with people that, I'm pretty sure that I won't become friends with.
Yeah.
But they're still nice people,
And you have aviation in common, yeah.
And not even that. We have photography in common, the love for this country, or, the love for experiencing something awesome, So it's those kind of things that tie you up in that society we call, pilots or photographers or adventurers groups or whatever. And it's that passion. And if you don't have passion for it, then you're in a sad place.
Without doubt.
And I still consider myself very passionate for aviation, very passionate for flying. But I want to keep my safety record in that regard as
Absolutely.
well. So I don't do, stuff that perhaps other pilots would be doing because I don't have the qualifications to do so. But I still love every aspect of flying, right? Mm-hmm. Except airline flying as a passenger coach, but that's another story.
Sitting in a middle seat. Yeah, no thank you. I'll pass. Yeah. Talk about, so you've obviously followed your account for a while. You've flown some pretty cool people and you've flown a lot of friends and some aviation influencers like Pilot Maria. Talk about kind of those flights. What are some of your favorite flights? Does one stick out with maybe who you've flown or a reaction of when you flew someone?
That's not an easy question.
No, I asked the hard questions.
So the reason that I am on Instagram, this probably would have come up sooner or later, but the reason I joined Instagram was I was flying with a photographer, it was called Chris Burkhardt. Uh-huh. And I didn't know him at that time. He came through another friend, right? And we met up at the airport and went flying, and we immediately hit it off. He's one of the gems that I've met, been fortunate enough to meet in my life. And he came in from the Faroe Islands at 8:00. We were airborne at 9:00 or so, and he has another flight to the States, back to the States at 3:00 in the afternoon. So we had limited time together, and we're flying, and he's just shooting, and he's just going wild, right? And I'm telling him, we have to get back. We really have to get back.
You got a plane to catch.
He's just here, right? Let me shoot here, just here for a while. And he's so passionate, right? Yeah. And we're going like, okay, this is it. I got to go full throttle now back to Reykjavik. And we landed, but just before we landed, he goes like, dude, are you on Instagram? And I said, no, I'm not. Facebook works well for me, I say. No, you got to be on Instagram. No. Let's get that. No, promise me you'll be on Instagram. I can't promise anything. But later that week or the week after, I signed up for Instagram and called myself by the company I have, Volcano Air. Mm-hmm. And that was, I soon changed that over to Volcano Pilot, which I haven't regretted it since, actually. But Chris was a huge influencer on me in terms of getting on Instagram. And when I started this account, all of a sudden I get like 300 followers.
Yeah.
I go like, what? What happened there? So Chris had actually tagged me in a picture.
Oh, there you go. That always helps.
And at that time, and this is, I don't know, 5 years ago or so. And at that time, he had like 100,000 followers. And that was crazy. I was going like, who can have like 100,000 followers? I don't know what he's up to now. He's probably 3.5 million or something.
Dang. Oh my
and whenever, these kind of people tag me on those pictures, I get like an extra 1,000 followers or something. So it's a nice thing,
yeah.
Right? And people come to me because I've been flying with Chris, and he's so well respected in the photography world that people that know him, which is pretty much the majority of all photographers on Instagram, they know that we've flown together, and that's why they're contacting me. Of course, because photographers come to me, it's a ball that keeps on rolling down the hill.
Absolutely.
Because they start tagging me and they grow their followers up to, I don't know, in the millions, right? And it's all like that. It's the magic of social media.
Yeah. Here's a question. What is kind of the best time to fly in Iceland? Is it, because obviously we talk about how crazy the weather can be, but is it springtime, summertime, fall? Is there a particular time that's the best time to go fly?
I would say summertime, when we have the most frequency of flying conditions.
Okay.
Now you get those flying conditions in the winter too. And sometimes, winter flying is just absolutely breathtaking because there's snow over everything, and the light and the shadow play of the shadows is just crazy for a photographer like me. But and the conditions are usually good. If it's cold, it's probably sunny, but windless.
Mm-hmm.
So we always have turbulence around mountains and stuff. It depends on, of course, the velocity of the wind at those points. But usually you will always have, a bump or two in a flight.
Yeah, just a couple.
But yeah, in wintertime, it can be still just, you can be floating around the sky.
Yeah. I've seen it. I remember seeing a couple of videos that you did where it was too cold and you guys had to lay to warm up your hands, and people sitting in the back were freezing their butt off and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. The thing is, you open the windows to take shots, right?
Yeah.
And have those windows open is, it gets cold.
It does.
Let's put it that way.
It does. What altitude do you, oh, sorry, go ahead.
One of my friends, he's, he got cold fingers, like cold sores on his fingers. And it took him 3 or 4 months just to get feeling back in his fingers.
Oh my gosh.
But the thing is, when you're in the moment, you're not feeling this.
No.
Right?
Your adrenaline's pumping.
Your adrenaline is pumping, and you're just shooting your the best shots of your life, right? And you can't miss it. But when you get warm again, you start feeling that you have no feeling. Right? You're kind of registering that those fingers are not working as they should.
Jeez, almost lost his fingers for the photo.
It got cold that day.
That's part of the territory, though. What altitude do you normally fly at when you're flying around Iceland for kind of a volcano air flight? Does it just range depending on the topography that you're flying over?
It does.
Okay.
It does a lot, of course. Usually I don't go that high. I think, from a photographic perspective, the maximum it would be like, I don't know, 2,000 or 3,000 ATL. And that can go up all the way up to actually 10,000 feet here in Iceland. That's the highest elevation is at 8,000 or so.
What's the airspace like in Iceland? Is it obviously it's a smaller country, it's a more remote country, not so smaller, more remote country, but
uncontrolled for the most part.
Most of it's uncontrolled. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's
and
cool.
that's the good thing. That's the brilliance of it, right?
Yeah.
So 6 miles out of Reykjavik Airport, you call yourself out. You're on a flight plan, like a VFR flight plan, but that's oral, so you don't have to file a physical, digital or paper flight plan. You call it in, and that's kind of a safety thing that we want, because if something happens and you're stranded somewhere, they will go looking for you.
Oh, cool. Right? And obviously the conditions are pretty bad. So if something happens, I'm guessing time is very critical on saving your life.
It is. And, there was an accident when we talk about that. There was an accident a couple of years, probably 5 years ago, where a plane hit a mountain up north.
Oh, no.
It was on a flight plan, but it didn't have a 406 ELT. And it took them 8 hours to locate the plane. I think it was 8 rather than 7. And at that time, the guy they found alive was in a terrible state, of course. And it would have helped, him having a 406 or a PLB or something, that they could track him down immediately and know that there was something wrong. Yeah. But they just started looking for him when he didn't show up 2 hours after he left Akureyri up in the north.
Dang.
So time is of the difference. Totally makes all the difference.
Yeah, it does, for sure.
So we file flight plans in Reykjavik out of controlled areas, and 6 miles out, you're out of control, out of control zone, not out of control.
Right.
And there you do almost whatever you want to.
That's fun.
And this is pretty awesome when you compare this to flying in the States or in Europe. You have military zones, you have no-fly zones, you got TFRs and all that. You don't have any of that.
Oh, cool.
Except in around airports, and of course, as a pilot, you know where those are. But in terms of just general flying, you're limitless.
So the safety falls on the pilot, essentially. So the decision making of the pilot really is kind of the key source in how high you fly above the mountains or terrain.
Of course, critical point.
Yeah.
But when you compare this to flying in Europe or the States, and I've flown with a lot of pilots here as well, and they all go like, they're amazed of the freedom that we have here. There is no, we don't have to call every now and then on the radio. I can actually shut my radio off when I'm flying up there. I don't do it, but I could legally. There isn't that much traffic in around. So the only times that you're really, vigilant about traffic is when you approach another airport, right? The States, you might be flying through a training zone without you knowing, right?
Yeah.
And that me when pre-GPS and all that, you would be flying around and all of a sudden you see a plane next to you doing stalls. Right?
Yep, that's happened. Yeah. Turn left.
Yeah. So it's you don't worry about that here.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean that's the ultimate freedom. Then you're right. That sounds like a blast.
And one thing that you talked about, the thriving GA community here, we have higher. Icelanders rocket per capita statistics. So we have the highest number of pilot certificates per 100,000 inhabitants.
Oh, no way. That's cool.
World. We have the highest population of pilots in the world.
That's awesome.
And even compared to the States, I think we're like 2 or 3 times higher than the States, and even higher than Alaska, which is the most populated pilot per inhabitant area. Then you have more pilots here than in Alaska.
That's so cool.
It is. And when you think about it, most of those pilots are flying for the airlines, and we have a few airlines, but many of them are also GA pilots.
That's awesome. No, GA flying is amazing, and I want to get back into GA flying. I fly a business jet, which is a little bit more fun, I think, than flying for the airlines. I get to go to all the cool airports in the States, and I get to go to mountains. I get to go to the beaches. So I want to take it even a step further and start flying a 172 or an Aero or something a little lighter, a little more fun, and a little more freedom.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well,
yeah.
I completely agree with you, and I think you should.
It's the next step.
Get your SEP rating there.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, that would be awesome.
And every pilot that I know, they say this, right? I have to get back. I have to do this again. And my friend who's the app guy that I work with, he's always, we are always going to do this. He's always going to, but we never have the time to, do it eventually. But he will. This summer, definitely. I'll make it.
I have a rapid fire section for you.
Oh boy.
The rapid fire section is going to be a bunch of random aviation questions where you just list the first thing that comes to your mind. You ready?
Okay.
You don't have a choice. So here we go. Do you prefer Cessna or Piper?
Cessna.
What is your favorite plane you've ever flown?
Cessna 170.
What is the ugliest airplane you've ever seen?
Airvan. GA8 Airvan. Australian made.
Okay, I don't think I've seen it before, so I'll have to Google that. What is your favorite airline to fly on?
Iceland Air.
Least favorite airline to fly on?
Wizz Air.
Wizz Air. Okay, that's an unfortunate name. I can't think I've flown
I flew with them yesterday.
Oh,
so
no way.
That's the most recent one, and I did not like it.
Yeah. Customer service or just the total experience?
Just total experience.
Yeah.
It was just, I've flown with Ryanair at one. You made me remember that I flew with Ryanair once, and that was like, going into a slaughterhouse as a lab. Right?
That's funny.
That I will never fly with them again, probably. But Wizz Air kind of reminded me, resembles that experience, and I'll probably never fly with them again.
That's funny. What is your favorite type of geography to fly over? Do you like beaches, the mountains, kind of wide open area where you can fly as low as you want?
I'm going to say Iceland.
Okay, just Iceland in general?
Just Iceland in general, because that's... of course, I'm a little biased in that respect, but I've flown in California, I've flown in Kentucky and Florida, and I've flown in New Zealand, Australia, Europe, and there is no place in the world that compares to the scenery that you have over Iceland.
Yeah.
That's just, it isn't a doubt. They're other pilots say this as well. Right, and other Icelandic pilots. There's a special air over here.
For sure. I mean, I see it just on your Instagram, so I would agree. It makes me jealous every day.
Let's keep it going.
I know, right?
Until you get here.
All right, here's another one. What is a dream plane of yours to fly? So if you could choose one plane, it could be a big business jet. It could be a 777. What is a dream plane you've always wanted to fly?
I would say a Cessna 185 on floats.
Okay, there you go. That'd be cool.
Now, business jets, I would love to, because you would be going places and you would be traveling somewhere far. But in general, for just being able to land next to a beach or next to, anything, basically, that would be it. And the Cessna 185, of course, you can change it over to skis as well, or big tundra tires, right? So it's a versatile aircraft. But in terms of that, let's just say Cessna 185.
All right, there you go. So 185 in general, cool. Yeah. What is kind of your aviation Mount Rushmore? So who would you put kind of historically? It could be people that are alive today and flying, but maybe like your favorite 3 pilots or 3 contributors to aviation. Who would they be?
Aren't there 4 on Mount Rushmore?
Well, yeah, I was just going to have however many you want. 3 is
Okay.
usually a little bit easy to number, but yeah, there are 4 on Mount Rushmore.
Okay. I think Captain Sullenberger.
That's a good one.
Would be one of them. Not necessarily for what he did at the time, but the amount of PR he gained in the aftermath of it and what he said and all that. Dagfinnur Stefansson, which is a local pilot as well. He is 93 years old.
Oh my gosh.
I had the privilege of flying with him over to the States for his 90th birthday, or just before his 90th birthday, because he always wanted to fly Jennies. You know what a Jenny is? Okay. It's a biplane built in 1913, I think it flew for the first time. And he always wanted to fly something older than himself. He's pretty old. And he always wanted to fly Jennies. He wanted to be able to say, I've flown everything from Jennies to jets.
That's so cool.
And he has over 28,000 hours in the air.
That's awesome.
And he's still flying. And I'm hoping to fly with him this summer again. But he's definitely there. He's a terrific guy.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I would. You know, I'm a bit biased in that regard too. Put a guy called Magnus Nordahl up. You can see him on AOPA Iceland Instagram story. He's an old pilot as well, very active, and we flew together a year ago or so, doing wheel landings on the Cessna 170, which are not. You know, I'll admit that I haven't been using them for a long time, and I asked him to go with me. And he's like 90 years old. And he goes like, of course, you know, and shows me how to do it again, right? And he's just one of those guys that keeps aviation alive. He still flies his Yak 55 aerobatics plane.
That's crazy.
And he loves every aspect of flying, right? And just, you know, the personalities of these guys are totally different, but in general, they are, you know, the role models that you want to be when you're at 90. Right?
Absolutely. I hope I'm still flying. Yeah, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, you know.
That's awesome.
There are loads of more. I mean, there are pilots all over the world that are doing extraordinarily fun things and interesting things. I can't name them all, of course. Not at all. but you see this as an inspiration to what you could be, right? And when you have that inspiration, it's something to go after and say, you know, what can I do in order for that to happen? And that's why I would name them.
Love it.
Sullenberger, for example, being able to handle a very difficult situation in a calm and decisive manner, but also raising public awareness on the state of aviation or the state of airline aviation in general in the States.
For sure.
I think that was a very good thing for just opening people's eyes. And we can do this too. You know, we talked about earlier about making flying fun again. This is something that we can do. You know, with the right kind of marketing, with the right kind of PR. Absolutely. And one of those things is Instagram and Facebook and social media in general, and YouTube as well. There are a few channels on YouTube that, you know, you see people flying their planes, and they do an excellent job of promoting aviation, general aviation, how fun this can be, and, you know, their struggles and their hurdles that they have to come get over and stuff like that. And it's fun to watch.
No, YouTube, I would agree. It is very fun to watch, and it helps show the love of aviation and just the dynamics of aviation. And I love it. You're right. Got a couple more for you. What is one thing you always have to have on your person while you're flying? I'm guessing for you, it's going to be a camera. So if that's your answer, you got to say something else.
Phone.
Phone? Okay. Because it has a camera?
Because it has a camera.
Yeah.
And you can always, most of the time you can contact, if something happens and you're in contact. So yeah, phone.
All right.
Never fly without. And a good pair of headset.
Yes. And some sunglasses.
Not necessarily in Iceland.
Oh yeah. I'm a sunglass guy, man. My eyes are very sensitive to the sun. So get in the clouds and I'm out there squinting.
Yeah. The thing is, I almost never fly above the clouds. So I don't have that luxury problem.
There you go. Yeah. Right. All right. Let's see this will be the last one, I think.
And, I have to add to this. Never fly without a barf bag in the plane.
Oh, because you never know who might get sick.
You never know. And this happened to me many years ago. And my son, who was then probably 12 years old or so, he had gone with his mother to the ice cream store and gotten this Slurpee, multicolored and flavored Slurpee.
Uh-oh. I see where this is going.
Yep. I don't have to finish the story, do I?
No, you don't. Everyone knows what happened.
Just minutes before landing, this all came out into my sweater, which was fortunately a fleece kind of thing. Yeah. So it held it, liquid wise, but you don't want to have that happen to you ever. Cleaning up vomit in your plane, that you don't want that. So always have a barf bag in the plane.
On the side note to that, on the other side though, don't let them know that it's available, because I've always heard, I don't tell people there's a barf bag, because they start thinking about it. They start fixating on the fact that, I could throw up on this barf bag,
Would you rather them not knowing about it?
I've never had to clean up a plane full of vomit, so I can't fully say.
I'm not going to agree with you. I always tell my passengers where the barf bags are.
That's funny.
And I say, they're hardly ever used, but don't be ashamed. It happens to the best of us.
That's funny. Oh, cool. The last rapid fire question I have is, there's two parts. What is your favorite and least favorite airline livery?
Damn.
There's so many.
I don't think there are so many, and I'm not really interested in airline liveries, but I'll tell you the best one.
There you go.
The best one was when Iceland Air puffed up their 757 and called it Aurora. So they painted the plane 757. And kind of Northern Lights livery.
Cool. Yeah, that's really cool.
And you can find this plane anywhere on the internet, right?
Yeah.
Iceland Air 757 Aurora. And there you see just the perfect livery of any airplane, right? It was a huge marketing success. The least, I'm going to say Ryanair again, just because I mentioned them before.
Because your personal vengeance against the airline?
Maybe it's that. I'll never be hired by them anyways, because I'll never apply with them.
That's funny.
So I'm kind of in the
So you're not burning any bridges. There you go.
I'm not.
That's funny. All right. Well, you have successfully survived the podcast. I do have one more question for you.
Dude.
And it is relatively an easier one, but it is. So let's do this. You are at Oshkosh. You're doing the meetup that you talked about. You have someone come up to you. They say, your account has inspired me to become a pilot. I just want to do what you do. What are kind of 3 tips that you would give this future pilot in becoming into the aviation community, to starting his aviation career?
Okay, first off, stick to the schedule, right? Don't stick to the long-term goal of becoming and completing your mission of becoming a pilot, right? Don't let any, distractions blow you off course in that goal. Another thing, remember that pilots are a community. You're never going through life alone, right? and you'll always need a helping hand somewhere where you go. And pilots are usually, and I say that, by generalizing, they're usually a nice group of people.
Yeah.
And you can always get some help or assistance. You can always find a mentor. You can always ask someone to go fly with you because you're not confident on this or that, right? And it's a community that spans, across its borders. That's what I've learned through my Instagram account, at least. I've got invitations of flying, pretty much anywhere in the world. And I love that. It's a community worth engaging in, and making it stronger by being active in it.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
100%. The third thing is just find the joy. Find the joy in flying, and find the joy in whatever flying does for you. It might be, being able to travel quickly in between places. That's fine by me. You would use your private jet, which is not my kind of flying, but you would use that for, being able to be at home in a quicker way,
right? To
be with your family or whatever. Or you could use it as a primary means of getting paid. That's one thing. When I discovered that I could take decent photographs from the air, that was my, there I hit the jackpot. But flying means different things for different people.
Without a doubt.
And some find solace, or some find the fun in doing hard aerobatics, which I don't do.
Yeah,
right?
I'll pass on that. No, thank you.
That's an awesome thing for you. There you find that for you. Yeah. And some other would be, herding cattle in Australia with their planes. Yeah. That's perfect. That's a perfect example of how flying can fit you. Or in New Zealand, where I flew last year, most farmers, or I wouldn't say most, many farmers have their own plane. And they would do crop dusting on their planes. Yeah. Right? And they would be able to get in between, the farm and the town to buy groceries. This is something that Alaskans also do, right? Yeah. So that's flying for you. And there you use that privilege in the right way of being able to accommodate for the needs, or just like me, make me happy. And I said before, and I'll stick to that, flying raises my happiness levels. And if I don't go flying, I've been grounded for a couple of days now because of weather, right? Yeah. And I was on a business trip before that, and I haven't flown in like 10 days. Oh, no. And I'm getting jittery, right? Gotta go. Oh, gotta feel the air. Gotta go. And my wife, she once said that maybe I was a little more addicted to air than most others.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe just a little. Yeah. And only a pilot knows, the feeling of being grounded for whatever reason, whether it's weather or medical, or your plane is out, or something. Only a pilot knows that feeling of.
It's true.
You can't even, I don't have the words to explain it.
I know, yeah.
Frustration and desperation and all that come together in one emotion. Going like, I have to fly.
Yeah. I love it. I love those answers. And one thing I'll add to I love how you said find the joy in aviation, because that's different for everyone, right? Like everyone has their different joys in aviation. Like someone might love aerobatics, like you said. Someone might love jumping out of planes or find people that jump out of planes. Mm-hmm. So find what you love about aviation and hold on to that, because it's going to get tough. Aviation training is hard. It can be very demanding. You won't like it at some point. Like you find yourself in love with it right now, but when you are having trouble grasping a concept, you're going to have some hard times, and you need to fall back on the love that you first had. And so always hold on to that and always remember that, because when it gets hard, that's what's going to help you get through it, because you don't want to walk away when it gets tough, because you might regret it in the long run. And so stick to that joy. So I love how you said that.
Oh, thank you. Well, it is true, doing QDM and QDRs on the ADF when I did my instrument training, I've never had more frustrating time in learning, Yeah. But as it clicked, and all of a sudden the picture kind of came to me, and it's that easy. Okay, so there you go.
Yeah,
you
for sure.
you reach some point of knowledge or competency in doing something that you otherwise wouldn't have. Right.
Yeah.
And that's one thing about becoming a pilot that I think it in all terms raises your level of self-esteem to a point. It not just because you're a pilot, but being able to control the plane safely to the ground again, right? And doing it in kind of a not necessarily professional manner, but in a safe manner, right?
Yeah.
And that would raise anyone's levels of self accomplishment or self esteem.
Yeah, without a doubt. And then when the days when you can't land when you just can't figure it out, because those days happen too. I have terrible landings still to this day with over 4,000 hours. So, and you drive away from the airport and you're like, what the heck was that? Yeah.
What the hell happened there?
Yeah. It's like, damn, I haven't landed that.
Cry yourself to sleep.
Always,
but it's over the next morning.
Yeah,
right?
over the next morning, then you put down a greaser and you're like, I'm back.
Yeah. That's where I know myself.
Yeah, that's where it is. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. I was looking forward to this, and I know I've been bugging you for a while, so I'm so glad that you said yes, and I'm so glad that you're willing to come on.
Let's say you're persistent.
I'm very persistent. Some people might find it annoying, but yeah, hey, I think that you have a good story, and I wanted the world to hear it, the aviation world to hear it. So I'm very thankful for you coming on. If you're ever in Chicago, if I'm ever in Iceland, I'd love to hit you up and meet you and kind of talk a little more. So let me know. And maybe one day we're going to have you on again.
Awesome.
Sounds
Look forward
good.
to it, man.
We can debrief a little bit once we get off, but thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
You too, Biddy.
Thanks.
Take care.
And that is a wrap of episode number 60. Aviation, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And as I said earlier, please leave us a review on iTunes. Give me some feedback at pilottopilothq@gmail.com. I love learning from you guys, learning what I can do better, how I can create the best content for you all. And don't forget to enter the sweepstakes. You have the chance to win a Super Cub with wheels and floats from AOPA. Go ahead and check out that website I mentioned earlier and enter as many times as you can so you can win this sweet Super Cub. Aviation, as always, happy flying.